Welcome everyone to the Lo-Fi Poli-Sci Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pickering. That's right, Lo-Fi's and low-fidelity, low-quality, in-your-face, messy-as-can-be global news show. Here we're going to talk about that famous question, what's going on in the world today? We'll be covering 5 headlines from across the globe and then choose one to go into a more detailed analysis. It's Wednesday, everyone, meaning it's Wednesday's feature on Transparency International and corruption around the globe. Today, for our third story, we're focusing on the South American country of Paraguay. But first, the news, fresh off the press. Source, AP News International. Germany charges man with spying for Indian intelligence. This is a rarity, folks. Although we always like to bring you the fast-paced, high-flying stories of international espionage and global crime syndicates, it's a rarity that a democratic country accuses another democratic country of spying on them. Although, it is assumed that all countries spy on all other countries, so it may not be that big of a surprise after all. The story. The man is charged with spying on Kashmir activists and members of the Sikh community while in Germany. Both of the aforementioned groups are victims of discrimination and persecution in India. Recently, we've discussed increased conflict in the Kashmir region. This story only adds to the conflict by indicating the Indian government is not only using domestic means to discriminate against these groups, but also keeping tabs on their communities abroad. We'll be watching this story develop very closely, as India is the world's largest democracy by population. However, this case demonstrates the level of work still needed to be done in the country. Next up, source, AP News International. Death toll from attack on Kabul maternity clinic rises to 24. On Tuesday, an unnamed group of gunmen attacked a maternity clinic in the capital of Afghanistan. The Taliban has already stated they had nothing to do with this attack, not wanting to further endanger the already fragile state of peace talks with the Afghani government and the U.S. The implications. No one has claimed responsibility for this horrible terrorist attack. The investigation is in its early stages and ongoing. Generally, terrorist groups do claim responsibility for their attacks, as it's seen as a PR move for the group in showing everyone their level of power and terror. The fact that no group has claimed responsibility for this could mean any number of things, but we will not speculate here. Instead, we say to hate groups and terrorist groups everywhere, leave the innocent alone. Let people live their lives in peace, and hopefully happiness with their loved ones. We at Lo-Fi Poli-Sci don't report on things like this because we like to. We discuss these topics because it's important to let everyone know, everywhere, that there is still much work to be done in the world. And however much we can give, large or small, we at Lo-Fi Poli-Sci and everyone else will do what we can to help others, everywhere, wherever they may be. May we all find peace in our time, Lo-Fi listeners. Next up, and yes, it's always hard to follow up stories such as these. We're not moving on, Lo-Fi Nation. We're adding to the list of countries and places we care about in the world. There's about 200 countries out there, and we will visit each one of them, together. Today we add to it with our weekly Wednesday feature on Transparency International. Last week we left off our journey around the globe in South America with Uruguay. Today we start off with Paraguay. Geography lesson, Lo-Fi Nation. Paraguay is a landlocked country with Brazil bordering it to the northeast and east, Argentina to the south and southwest, and Bolivia to the northwest and north. The country gained independence as a sovereign state in 1811, and in 2018, Paraguay had a World Bank recorded GDP per capita of just over $5,800 a year, making it a developing country as far as economic development goes, but still a higher tier developing state. And remember, Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index ranks countries and territories between 1 and 180, as well as providing scores of 0 to 100, 0 being very corrupt and 100 being very clean. And Paraguay comes in at a score for 2019 of 28 out of 100 and ranks 137 out of 180 countries and territories, placing it in the lower 25 percentile, with countries closer to the quite corrupt systems. For a comparative perspective, Paraguay is tied at 137 with Uganda, Mauritania, Kenya, Lebanon, Russia, Papua New Guinea, Dominican Republic, and Liberia. Below it at 146 is Angola, Mozambique, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Guatemala, Honduras, and Iran. And above it at 130 is Guinea, Mexico, Laos, Myanmar, Mali, and Togo. As we can see from the list and the country's rankings, there's a lot to be done as far as developing political institutions and rooting out corruption. But patience. The background of recent history is quite telling in this case. Paraguay may have gained independence in 1811, but from 1954 to 1989, for 35 years, the country was ruled under a dictatorship. It was not until 1992-93 that the first free, multi-party democratic elections were held in the country. That's only 27 years with democracy, Lo-Fi Nation. Developing democratic institutions takes time. We're rooting for you, Paraguay. Stay strong. And now for our headline in the Spotlight segment. Source, Reuters World News. Niger says 75 Boko Haram insurgents killed in border region security operations. A bit of geography and context for this story, Lo-Fi listeners. Boko Haram is a terrorist group centered in the north of Nigeria in West Africa. Niger borders the country to the north, meaning they have to also deal with security threats. Earlier this week, a joint security forces group from Nigeria, Niger, and Chad had engaged Boko Haram forces and destroyed one of their bases of operations near the border. The background and implications of this story. Boko Haram has its roots in 2009, and at one time had an estimated force of 10,000 soldiers or members. However you wish to categorize them is beside the point. The group is unique in comparison to other terrorist organizations, as usually it stays focused in northern Nigeria, and it has far more members than most other groups. Although it should be stated that accurately calculating the membership of secret or underground groups is exceedingly difficult. For a decade now, this group has terrorized the region in which it is located. This story, however, along with other similar stories over the past year, brings forth a very important question I pose to you, students of Lo-Fi Poli-Sci. Could we be witnessing the beginning of the end of Boko Haram? Will Nigeria, along with fellow neighboring countries, band together to bring back peace to the region? A very important question indeed. Write in and let me know your thoughts. And a last piece of news from the BBC News Technology section. Facebook to pay $52 million to content moderators over PTSD. A class action lawsuit of over 11,000 Facebook moderators has been settled in court. Of the moderators that qualify, they will each receive $1,000, and more if they are diagnosed with PTSD. But why are they getting money for doing their job, and why is Facebook pumping out $52 million to do so? Let's jump into it, Lo-Fi Nation. The implications. Have you ever been on Facebook and seen something you know you shouldn't have? Of course you have. And if you are lucky, and your answer is no, then you should be thanking these moderators. People post messed up things to the platform trying to show the world all the horrible illegal things that they are doing. These content moderators are trying to protect the community from seeing images, videos, or hearing audio of horrible, heinous crimes all over the world. Crimes that would leave most of us scarred for a lifetime. The argument of the moderators, which Facebook has ultimately agreed with, hence why they're paying, is that Facebook failed to supply these moderators with a positive way to deal with all of this horrible content that they are scrubbing from the platform. Being constantly subjected to painstaking images takes a toll on any person, and Facebook has agreed to help them out. And don't worry about your Facebook account going bye-bye because the company is choosing to pay $52 million to help out their employees. Remember, just last month we reported on the company investing $5.7 billion in an Indian telecommunications company. They have the money. Your account isn't going anywhere. And that's a brief snapshot of what's going on in the world today. Please write in with your questions, comments, or request of countries for our news segments or top 10 global list you want to see to LoFiPoliSci at planetmail.com. That's Lofi, L-O-F-I, Poli, P-O-L-I, Sci, S-C-I, at planetmail.com. Let me say thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, wash those hands, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Lo-Fi Poli-Sci podcast. Pickering, signing off.